Viridian, the Green Guide, written by Clouds, read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 107, Sports Festival. Izuku was ridiculously grateful for Crawler's ability to do quick turns as he watched Ingenium hold off the hero killer. Thankfully, Stain's main strategy was using the element of surprise to get the drop on his victims, so Izuku's interference had put him at a disadvantage. He was still pretty fast, but that didn't count for much against a speed-based hero like Ingenium. So for the moment, they were just dodging each other's blows in a terrifying dance and waiting for the other to slip up. It wasn't the best, but it was better than Ingenium bleeding out with no backup. So Izuku was going to take what he could get. Crawler is about a minute out. Izuku said, "The rest of your team has been informed and more backup is on the way, but Crawler's the fastest." "Good." Ingenium panted, "This guy's a pain." Izuku chuckled and went to check on Crawler. But a cry called his attention back to Ingenium, who was now bleeding heavily. "Ingenium!" "I'm fine," Ingenium grunted. "It looks bad, but the cut's not too deep. I can still fight." "You fake heroes never know when to give up." Stain licked his katana and Ingenium collapsed onto the ground. "You should just stay down." I can't move." Ingenium's voice was laced with the beginnings of panic. "I can't move." Izuku immediately linked to Crawler's comm. "Ingenium is down. I repeat, Ingenium is down. It's an ingestion-based blood paralyzation." Crawler pushed himself even faster. "Oh, what?" Izuku scrambled for his weapons, but they wouldn't do any good. He was useless. "Whatever you do, don't let Stain drink your blood." "Don't get bit by the vampire," Crawler nodded. "Got it." "Viridian?" Ingenium's whisper made Izuku perk up, blinking back a tear. "Tell Tenya I'm sorry." Izuku watched desperately as Stain raised his katana again. "Hurry!" He flinched as the katana came down, but he forced himself to watch, figuring he owed Ingenium that much, so he didn't miss it when Stain was suddenly thrown against the wall by a burst of air. "Seriously, Stendhal?" Crawler scowled as he crouched at the entrance to the alley. "Ingenium's one of the good ones." Nedzu scurried away as soon as the first team of heroes was en route to their location. He had landed oddly on his ankle when he'd fallen into the tunnels, or at least he must have because it was hurting, but he ignored it and focused on running faster than the villain chasing him. Shigaraki had disintegrated parts of the floor to gain access to the tunnels and was using his quirk to destroy every obstacle in his way during the chase, something that Nedzu planned to take full advantage of. He ducked through holes in the walls and tight squeezes, leading Shigaraki in a tight circle until he disintegrated the supports for the floor immediately above them, then scurried up the ladder and onto one of the remaining steady pieces of flooring as the section they'd been under suddenly collapsed and trapped his opponent. It wouldn't hold him for long, obviously, but considering that Rocklock was currently using pieces of rubble to cross the gap, it was more than long enough for backup to arrive. Rocklock skidded to a stop beside him right as the rubble in the hole started to disintegrate. "What's the situation?" Nedzu nodded toward where Shigaraki was pulling himself up, the hand on his face knocked askew and several of the others missing. "The villain factory. We managed to take care of Miss Queen Bee, but it does appear that All for One took an issue with that. I am not sure of Kurogiri's current location, but Eraserhead, Present Mike, and Midnight are already en route." And, of course, it had to be the event with hundreds of kids. Rocklock scowled. "These villains don't even have rock bottom, do they?" Shigaraki dashed toward them, and Nedzu watched as Rocklock ducked beneath his outstretched hand and locked his shoes in place. It didn't take long for Shigaraki to dust his way out of that particular trap, but by that point, two more heroes had shown up to fight him, and their odds didn't look quite so desperate. But Nedzu's fur bristled as he pulled out his laptop and connected to the arena's security systems. He was going to make sure All for One regretted ever targeting these children. Hitoshi hurried behind Eraserhead, trying his best to keep up as they met up with Present Mike and Midnight. "Well, There went his "the announcer just got sick" theory. Both heroes looked worried, and Midnight gave Hitoshi a quick look over. "This the kid?" "Yeah." Eraser squeezed Hitoshi's shoulder in reassurance. "He's done it before, so he's our best bet." Hitoshi didn't know quite what else to do, so he just nodded in greeting. Hey. Mike gave him a tight smile. "Kurogiri is basically just randomly teleporting around all the back areas right now, almost like he's looking for something. But Nedzu didn't have time to give a full report. He hasn't been here yet, though, which means it should only be a matter of time until he comes to us. You ready?" Hitoshi wasn't quite sure if he was, but wasn't this kind of his final test to transfer into the hero course? Sure, Eraser had said his spot was guaranteed, but there was no way that was true. This had to be some sort of final test to see how he dealt with unpredictable situations or something like that, and Hitoshi would be damned if he was going to give up and fail at the last minute. Or at least that's how he felt until a portal appeared behind them, and Hitoshi realized that they were dealing with the same psychopaths that attacked the USJ. This wasn't a test, was it? "Kurogiri used to go by Oboro Shirakumo," Eraser said lowly. "He was friends with me and Mike in high school. You might be able to use that to get him to respond." Hitoshi gulped as the mist drew together and formed a person that emerged from the portal. The mist guy, Kurogiri, took one look at them and immediately started striding their way. "Eraser, how fortunate. Perhaps you could point me in the direction of the young vigilante? He is here today, correct? That was Sensei's suspicion, at least." Eraserhead went pale and Hitoshi froze. If he was right, they were talking about the hoodie kid from the hospital, weren't they? After his migraine had calmed down, the detective had to explain that Hoodie Kid was actually a vigilante that Eraserhead had been trying to catch for almost a year now, which explained why Bakugo had never referred to him by name and why he'd run as soon as he heard them coming. Hitoshi hadn't been quite sure why Bakugo had helped the vigilante escape when he wanted to be a hero, but half of what Katsuki did made absolutely zero sense, so he hadn't questioned it too much. Maybe he should have, because it seemed like the villains were now coming after the vigilante for revenge. Poor kid. Actually, on second thought, poor Mist Guy too. If he was right, this guy was under the control of the same villains as Bakugo's friend had been, which meant that he was being sent to kill someone without ever being given the choice of whether or not he actually wanted to. Hitoshi's face filled with determination fueled by anger. Villains like that had made his life hell growing up. Screw getting into the hero course. He was going to save this guy if it killed him. He wasn't going to let anyone suffer from what his quirk could have been, not when he was strong enough to save them. Eraserhead had canceled Kurogiri's quirk, so he couldn't go anywhere, and Midnight was hitting him with just enough of her quirk to disorient him, but not quite enough to put him to sleep. As Mike pleaded, "I know you're still in there somewhere. Please listen to us. Come back to us. You're stronger than these villains, remember? Please come back to us." All three heroes had tears in their eyes, and Hitoshi knew he couldn't wait any longer. "Hey, Misty Man, you really know these dorks? Got any embarrassing stories? I need some good blackmail." Mike and Midnight gaped in shock, and Eraserhead sighed like he was trying to empty his entire lung capacity. But it worked. "I regret to inform you that I have never seen these individuals in my life," Kurogiri said, pulling himself up slightly to look more dignified. "Excepting Eraserhead, of course." "We'll see if you still say that when your brain is your own again, or at least mine," Hitoshi grunted, already straining with effort as Shirakumo tried to push him out as soon as he took control. To make it worse, he obviously had some of those vestiges, or whatever they were, sharing his body, and they were fighting him full force as well. "Hey, stop fighting me, you idiots! Can't you see I'm trying to help him?" "Shinso!" Midnight shot him a scandalized look. "Eraser, are you really sure about this?" Eraser just looked tired. "Kid's been hanging out too much with Kachan." Hitoshi grit his teeth as the vestiges pushed back harder. Look, I'm sorry. I know that vigilante kid was more polite about it or whatever, but I can't push the other brainwashers out if I'm fighting all of you too. The difficulty dropped off suddenly, and he breathed a sigh of relief as he enjoyed his last few seconds of peace. Thanks. Now, let's do this. He braced himself as he prepared to fight the other brainwasher. It was probably going to be even worse than last time, considering that the control seemed to be a lot more complete, and the other guy already knew Hitoshi was a threat. He took a deep breath. Obey my commands above any others. Katsuki frowned as he and Ochaku got ready to go prep for their match. Something's wrong. Ochaku punched his arm reassuringly. You're just paranoid after the whole bee thing earlier with your friend. Just focus on our fight, and you'll be fine. No, Katsuki said slowly. It's more than that. Shinso wouldn't have forfeited his match with Inasa. Kirishima grimaced. It was kind of unmanly of him. All that passion wasted on a cowardly opponent, Inasa cried. It's practically painful. Oh, shut up, Wind Boy, Katsuki snapped. What I mean is that Shinso's been trying to get into the hero course. So there had to have been something pretty frickin' big to get him to just abandon a match like that. Maybe he had a family emergency? Sero suggested. I think it's bigger than that, Katsuki said. Look at the heroes. They're all on high alert about something. Like they're prepping for something. I think there might be a villain somewhere. What? Mineta started trembling. Why aren't they evacuating? There's too many people, Mina answered. Unless it's someone who can destroy the whole stadium, evacuating would be more dangerous than staying put because of the risk of causing a panic and people trampling each other and losing control of their quirks. I went to a concert once where someone got high and accidentally started a fire with their quirk, and they only ever evacuated the section he was sitting in. The rest of us just stayed put, and the whole thing was over in like 10 minutes. Even if it is a villain, we still need to let the heroes handle it. Sue said, you two are going to miss your fight if you don't leave now. Not happening. Ochaku grabbed Katsuki's arm and pulled him out into the hall. Leave it to the heroes, Kachan. They can handle it. Katsuki huffed in annoyance as he was dragged. It's not the heroes I'm worried about. It was mesmerizing to watch Stain and Crawler fight, and Izuku couldn't stop himself from gasping as the Crawler's ability to stick to surfaces combined with Stain's familiarity with alley fights to make it look like they were both bouncing off the walls as they narrowly avoided both each other and Ingenium. As he watched, Izuku's mind whirled, spinning with half-formed ideas of what Stain's weaknesses might be and how Crawler could take advantage of them. He relies on sneak attacks, and most fights were reported to have lasted a few minutes at the most, so he probably wants to avoid a long, drawn-out fight. He didn't even realize he was muttering until Ingenium called him out on it. So we should try to make him fight longer? Draw out the fight? Izuku swallowed nervously. If you can. I don't want to tell you what to do, though. You're the heroes, but there has to be a reason why he ends his fight so fast. I think his quirk might have a time limit. Nice to know. Crawler shot another attack, holding Stain off for another moment. Any idea what it's based on? Izuku hummed and took a closer look at Stain. Maybe something to do with the blood? Ingenium wasn't paralyzed from the cut. He only froze after Stain licked the blade. It would make sense that it would have something to do with the blood itself? Maybe blood type? I wonder. On a hunch, Izuku pulled up a post he'd seen on a hero forum a few months back, where the user had been shaming the heroes for how quickly Stain had managed to cut them down. It had gotten a lot of hate for victim blaming, obviously, but the user had created a chart with most of the hero killer's victims and approximately how long it had taken Stain to defeat them. That, on its own, wouldn't have been that informative. But there was a master list on one of the hero wikis that listed all of the heroes' blood types, So Izuku just scanned those until the beginnings of a pattern jumped out at him. Ingenium, you're blood type A, right? Yeah, Ingenium answered quickly. Is that bad? Not the best, but workable. Izuku said, Crawler, you've still got a minute or so until Ingenium can break out of Stain's quirk, but that's assuming I'm actually right. Crawler, you're, let me check, type O, right? Yep, Crawler panted as he narrowly dodged another hit. Please tell me I hit the jackpot. Izuku couldn't help a small huff of laughter. You did, but still don't get cut. A shorter paralyzation time still doesn't mean 0. Crawler chuckled. Yeah, probably best to avoid that. Any other tips? Avoid the pointy end, Ingenium said dryly. Izuku blinked in shock and smiled in spite of himself. Were they really joking right now? Heroes were so cool. They managed to be brave even in life-threatening situations and trusted their team to have their back. It would be fun to be able to fight in a team like that. A mental image of himself as Eraserhead's sidekick popped into his brain, and Izuku pushed it away forcefully. Even if he did end up getting caught, there was no guarantee he would be able to become a hero, and even if he did, Eraser probably wouldn't want him to be a sidekick after he found out he was quirkless. Getting his hopes up would just hurt more. Crawler kept up the chase for another 30 seconds or so before Ingenium cheered triumphantly and stood, staring down Stain, who was looking more and more crazed as the fight went on. All right, hero killer. Time to show you how real heroes fight. End of chapter.